So, hello everybody. I'm gonna try to, I don't know, within a week or two, I'm gonna try to like push out a couple more of these videos, especially these ones for geography now. I actually am planning on making well, I should probably reintroduce myself for people who don't know. So I make videos on scientific content, and right now I'm doing a lot of reaction videos, but I do plan on making my own content fairly soon. I do plan on streaming on Twitch soon with a friend. We're trying to make a show. I know that everybody has podcasts now. That's kind of a joke, but we kind of want to try this out ourselves. And my background is that I have a bachelor's in biology, and I have a master's that I'm pretty much almost finishing up right now in environmental science, and I should have that hopefully within a month. I'm trying to finish the thesis right now, and that's pretty much it. That's kind of the biggest part. Kind of wish I had like an extra month in my life just to do that, but deadlines, etc. So right now we're doing a reaction to geography now. This one is on the UAE, which I believe stands for the United Arab Emirates. I don't know too much about this country. I have heard about it from a few people. A lot of people who used to be in the American Army have had a lot of jobs in the UAE, and a lot of teachers or friends of teachers I've also had jobs in the UAE. So I'm going to assume that it's kind of like similar to Saudi Arabia. Like obviously, well, I actually don't know if it has a like a monarchy or or and such. But I do think that it probably propped up from American investment, most likely in oil. Because what I do know from the UAE is that it's a very expensive country to live in, and they are very rich. But hey, if I say anything stupid, especially if you're from the UAE, feel free to correct me in the comments. I love talking to people. And just I have seen your comments on previous videos. There are a lot of people from many countries that have said, I think there's at least like 10 different countries that people wanted me to look at the geography nows for. I'm gonna try to kick those out in a couple of days. But yeah, let's start this actual video, and I need to turn the volume down because for some reason these videos are always so loud on my end when I'm trying to record them, so they must be extremely blaringly loud on your end when you're listening to them. And thank you for being here.
So for all you newbies out there that don't really geography much, Holland is not a country, it's a region in the Netherlands. Bali is not a country, it's a province of Indonesia. Tahiti is not a country, it's an overseas territory of France.
Hold up. Of course this thing's being weird now.
And in that regard, Dubai
There we
is
go.
not a country, it's an emirate within the UAE. And it's also a city in that emirate. And there's like 6 other emirates to talk about. Let's get started.
See, I know Dubai. That's the main city, right? I don't know if it's the capital.
Like this mug and this shirt at geographynow.com. Not selling it.
Sorry about that. I'm doing what I find annoying in everybody else's video. Talking over while not pausing. So I know that Dubai is like the main city. I don't know if it's the actual capital or not, but it'll probably go into that. Maybe it's Abu Dhabi. I don't know if that's in this country or not. But yeah, he'll probably talk about it.
Out if it's your brand. So ladies and gentlemen, we have reached our last triplet group of countries, the United Group, UAE, UK, and USA. Yeah,
let's go. USA, USA. Okay, I'm just kidding.
The first one, the United Arab Emirates. They're united, they're Arab, and they're Emirates. What on earth does that mean? Well, luckily that's kind of what we do here on Geography Now. We break it down so that even a brain-damaged starfish could understand.
I don't think starfish have.
I never claimed to be an orthodontist. Let's jump in. So since the beginning of the 21st century, the UAE has become a global phenomenon hotspot. Long story short, they went from this to this all within about 2 decades. But first, let's see where everything kind of lies geographically. Shall we?
First of all, the country is located on the eastern end of the Arabian Peninsula,
near Yemen,
Oman, and Saudi Arabia, with coastal borders on the Gulf of Oman, the Strait of Hormuz choke point, and this big body of water, which depending on who you ask,
the Red Sea,
will call it the Persian Gulf, Arabs will call it the Arabian Gulf. I don't have time for the semantics, you guys battle it out in the comments. Anyway, the country's capital is Abu Dhabi, and the country is divided
I did get that right.
into 7 emirates, each with a capital that corresponds to the emirate's name. Abu Dhabi is the largest emirate land-wise, and alone accounts for 87% of the entire country's landmass, and produces about 2/3 of the entire country's economy.
So from what I'm seeing, at least from this like satellite view, this seems to be mainly desert. So I'm going to assume that people mainly live on the coast and specifically in the capitals of these cities. So Abu Dhabi, he said the fact that I don't know, 2/3 of the economy comes from here. I'm gonna imagine it's from oil. Like this has to be oil fields, which is interesting. I don't know too much about the historical geography of this area of the world. But generally, petroleum products come from like marshes. So I don't know if like this area used to be like marshland and turned into a desert over time. If you know anything about that, feel free to put that in the comments. I'm fairly interested.
Nonetheless, the Emirate of Dubai is the most populous and also holds the largest and busiest shipping port, Jebel Ali, and the busiest airport, Dubai International. The second and third largest airports,
Dubai.
Abu Dhabi and Sharjah.
This is where they have all those
As
like.
of 2023, Dubai International is the busiest airport in the world.
1 second. So I saw that from the satellite view. So Dubai is where they have all these like artificial islands, which they should not have spent so much money on. They're expecting people to live in these like, frankly, as an American, I can say this. Frankly, ugly American style suburban like areas. Like suburbs are so terrible and badly designed. This is speaking as somebody who lived in suburbs for a while, growing up in Georgia, which is like I don't if you're from outside of the United States, it's the southeast United States. But they should not have made these islands, especially when they work in the petroleum industry. So they would have known before everybody else that they are affecting sea level rise with their own product. So they are literally pissing their own money into the wind. You could have like made more desalination plants across the coast of your cities, or make like cities that actually, frankly, look better than this. From what I'm seeing in the satellite view, a lot of these are like basically squares. Like maybe the whole place is just suburbs, which is not the best. But yeah, I'll let him explain what he wants to.
The world in terms of international passenger traffic, serving over 86 million passengers as of the most recent reports. Now, the Emirates
pretty impressive
are also
airport, though.
weirdly divided up, as in many of them actually have exclaves. Abu Dhabi, along with Al Quwain, are the only two single landmass emirates, whereas the rest are sort of chopped up all over the place. Dubai has one exclave, Hatta, about 80 miles, 134 kilometers east on the border with Oman. Ras Al Khaimah is split up into two parts, one on the coast.
So why is this? I'm going to assume this comes from the fact that it's called the United Arab Emirates. Maybe an emirate is kind of like a state or a province or a like constituency. So maybe these used to be their own more or less kingdoms beforehand, and they fused together. I could be completely wrong, but maybe they're trying to like keep the historical boundaries of whatever like kingdoms were there beforehand, and when they fuse these together into a single country. I may be wrong, but if he may go into this also in like the video, but if he doesn't, feel free to put that in the comments if you understand or know anything about this.
Coast and one inland. Fujairah is made up of 3 chunks of land on the east coast and one shared municipality with Sharjah, the Shamalia area. Ajman
Shared
has
municipality.
2 exclaves, Manama and Masfut, and Sharjah has the
Sorry for pausing so often, but that's something that I kind of wonder why more countries don't do more often. Well, I know this is one country that's doing that, but like shared like territories more or less. Like a lot of people will like argue or try to push territories to other people. I think like the Burr-Will Triangle. They might be mispronouncing that, but they're trying to give this to each other. I know there is like one area in like maybe France and Spain where there's like a small island that like changes between the two countries between like every like 7 or 10 years. I don't know, but I just think it's very interesting when countries have these like strange territorial boundaries that they more or less share. Huh.
most at 7. Kalba, which is split up into 3 parts, including the one that's shared with
How do they tell the
Fujairah,
population?
Diba Al Hessen, up by Oman's Musandam Peninsula exclave, and Khorkatan, split into 3 parts, including the Nawa second order exclave within Oman's Mada exclave. That's right, it's a part of the Emirates within Oman, within the Emirates. Crazy, right?
Side note number 1, the UAE has over 200 islands off its coast, most in the Abu Dhabi Emirate. In fact, the capital Abu Dhabi is on a bunch of islands. Side note number 2, we don't have a lot of time to dive into the history, but there was a time when the areas of what are now the UAE fell under the influence of the Portuguese and the Dutch. Side note number 3, I actually went to the Madhanawa exclaves when I was invited to Abu Dhabi for the VidCon event. I randomly met that dude that hosted Serbia's version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and he was also a fan of Geography Now, and he let me borrow his car so that I could
That's
drive
really
me
cool.
and my mom into these areas. Thank you so much,
Hey,
Ivan.
if I can-
On that side note, look, Dubai, you are fun and flashy.
I don't have the money to do it now because I'm a grad student, and anybody who's been in grad school knows how little we get paid. Until you actually get out of it and get like a decent job, which is, you know, hopefully I have a couple things lined up. But when I can start traveling outside of the country, this is kind of embarrassing to say as somebody who kind of likes geography. I've never been outside of the United States. But hey, if I can come to your country, please help me out. Just to visit, you know.
Not gonna lie, you look really cool, but driving in your city is a nightmare. Road exits can be super narrow and confusing. Everything forks off of the
That's
road
awful.
randomly. And like if you miss an exit, you practically have to go like all the way to Saudi Arabia before you can even do a U-turn. Like I don't know about the rest of the Emirates, but I absolutely hated driving in Dubai. I have to be honest. In any case, you're probably wondering about the Madha Nawa exclaves and why on earth it's demarcated that way. Well, in the 50s when the UAE was under the Trucial States as a protector of the British, it kind of went down like this.
Okay, look, Oman, we gotta figure this out. Where exactly do our countries exist, and how are we gonna draw this line?
Okay, so I'll take the south part, obviously, the Musandam Peninsula. That has to be mine.
Okay, well, then it's settled.
Hey, you forgot to ask us what we want.
I didn't see you there. You're like off hiding in the mountains. Okay, who do you want allegiance to?
Our clan is loyal to the Omani Sultan.
Ugh, okay, alright. That makes the map look a little weird, but fine. You are a small bubble of Oman in the crossroads of like 4 different emirates.
Hold up, no, we didn't agree to that.
What are you talking about?
I'm a small village within your bubble, and my clan has always been loyal to Sharjah.
Okay, I guess we're doing this.
And that's basically how it happened. Anyway, what it comes down to is
So that's a very okay. So I guess he's gonna actually explain it. So it's more or less like the tribes themselves that were in this area, like, kind of delegated what country they wanted to join, and that's a very interesting way of doing that. And I think it's a lot better than like what a lot of countries had to go through, especially like in Africa with decolonization, in which lines were just drawn very, very shittily, mainly by people who didn't live in the country. So they just, I don't know, it was pretty terrible. But yeah.
what even is an emirate and how did these 7 become one country? The shortest way to explain is an emirate is basically a land that is ruled by an emir. However, in the UAE, they don't use the word emir, they use the word sheikh. So then what is a sheikh? I've asked this question to many of my Emirati subscribers. I've heard conflicting answers, but overall, the general understanding I have is that according to traditional Arab/Muslim culture, it originally translates to something like elder or chief or tribal chief. But today it's more...
Okay, so I did kind of get that right. So they're more or less like the leaders of those tribes, more or less.
more of like a ruler/monarch connotation, but the word king wouldn't exactly be appropriate, even though functionally it's like a king, but it's not. It's a sheikh, not an emir, but it's an emirate, whatever. Just don't question it, stop questioning it.
This is pretty
Anyway,
interesting.
That's that. So how did the 7 emirates join? Well, actually, it was originally supposed to be 2, but then 9, but then it went down to 6, but then back up to 7. But it basically went like this.
Okay, Dubai, we've always been pretty close. We've always gotten along. Our royal family members are even relatives. So let's make a country, you and me.
Let's invite all the other emirates in the area.
Okay, let's start with the closest ones to us. Sharjah, Ajman, Al Quwain, Fujairah, Ras Al Khaimah. Are you guys in?
We're in. Nah, I'm good. I've been pretty stable on my own for the longest time, but thanks for the offer.
Okay. Qatar, Bahrain, you want in on this?
No, we can handle ourselves and be our own countries.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so that makes everyone but Bahrain, Qatar, and Ras Al Khaimah.
Oh, wait, hold on. I changed my mind. I'm in. I want to join the country.
And that's how that happened. Basically, the country today is ruled by the Supreme Council, which is the 7 sheikhs of each.
So somebody from each should be
they elect one
different
of them
councils.
to be a president and another as a prime minister. Technically, any of the 7 sheikhs could be voted as the president and prime minister, but they have kind of like a traditional understanding amongst each other that they will pretty much always put the sheikh of Abu Dhabi as the president and the sheikh Sheikh of Dubai as the prime minister. They just always do it. Basically, each sheikh is like a mini monarch to their own respective emirate. This means that although the federal government has executive power over things like foreign policy, defense, and security, each emirate has their own jurisdiction over things like councils, laws, police forces, allocation of budgets, and so on. Like, for example, the Sheikh of Sharjah, he will still be respected throughout the whole country, but he would never like encroach upon the territory of another emirate and like build property or businesses. Everything he does will be focused on.
So it's like a confederacy of like 7 kingdoms, more or less. It's pretty interesting.
His own emirate. In any case, that's enough legislative talk. Let's finish off this segment with the famous places. Now, I'm sure you've seen a lot of cool places in the
I have not. I have no idea what's...
Abu Dhabi. And Abu Dhabi has the largest mosque in the country, largest indoor theme park.
I know nothing about this country except for Dubai. That's it. So this is pretty interesting, actually.
In the world, Warner Brothers. Al Ain Oasis is a really cool place
That's
as well.
pretty.
And don't forget Qasr Al Hosn. I got to go there with my mom. Really cool place. It shows you the entire history of Abu Dhabi. And
That's
Dubai,
cool also.
I don't really have to say much. You already know. Everything from the largest mall in the world and the Burj Khalifa, the Burj Al Arab, Palm Jumeirah, Dubai Frame, Atlantis Water Park,
That's interesting.
Miracle Garden, Al Fadi Quarter,
That's
Global
pretty.
Village. But hey, sometimes you got to give all the Emirates some spotlight too, and not just Abu Dhabi and Dubai.
Yeah, I want to know something about the other
More of
ones.
the tradition and culture in Islamic side, Sharjah is great. They got great museums.
That looks
Ajman
great.
has really cool nature preserves. They have that castle on top of the mountain. Al Quwain has Dreamland Aqua Park. If you want nature and mountains.
Yeah, I'm a big nature guy, as you can tell from like the majors that I talked about that I got my degrees on. So I know most people go to like the main tourist hubs, which are usually more urban when they visit places, but I kind of want to visit the more natural places like this.
Ras Al Khaimah is the place to go. Fujairah, really cool beaches on the east coast and the oldest mosque in the UAE. So if you come to this country, check out the other Emirates. Don't just stick around in Abu Dhabi or Dubai. There's all these other cool places you can check out. So there you go. In any case, it's about time we move on to the next segment. So let's do it. So here we go, the UAE and its land. This is where things get a little interesting. You know, dry, arid terrain. But I promise you, it gets a little more layered than just sand and dunes.
Much of the UAE lies in the Rub al Khali, or empty quarter of the Arabian Peninsula. This area is characterized by being a vast open desert with sand dunes. And with that in mind, the UAE is one of the few countries and territories on Earth that does not have any permanent rivers or natural inland bodies of water. I mean, there are tons of man-made lakes you can find, especially across Abu Dhabi's desert, such as Stingray Lake, Crescent Moon Lake, and the Super Love Lake, shaped like
That's actually pretty
interlocking
cool.
hearts. Some might say of these man-made bodies of water.
Okay, I know I bitched earlier about the islands that are off to the side, but I do think the lakes are really smart, especially if they're actually using desalination to make fresh water like inside of the desert. That's actually a really smart idea, in my opinion. Like maybe that isn't a good idea, like because I imagine it's like very high energy costs in order to do that. But I don't know, if you had the ability to do that, I think that it would make more sense to just like do a bunch of these like little pet project little lakes, streams, etc. inside your desert, just to make it more like hospitable, you know. I imagine it'd be a pretty good like tourist wise, because I imagine people like love to see this, especially if you like put this is hey. So yeah, this is just my thoughts. But if you like make these like little cities around each of these like little lakes, that would probably be really good for, you know, bringing in industry. But I don't know. If anything, it's kind of what I want to end up doing. It's like helping to build sustainable, like, I don't know, towns and such. Obviously not to this extent. I don't have the money to do something like this, but I don't know. Anyway, I'm rambling. Back onto the video.
The Hatta Reservoir is the largest one, blocked off by the Hatta Dam in the Hajar Mountains. In fact, the Hajar Mountain Range, the only one in the entire country, is home to the most seasonal wadis, or mini lakes and ponds, and it is also the most lush and green.
I do know what a wadi is.
Where moisture is held better. In this mountain range, in the north part, you can also find the tallest peak, Jebel Jais, just on the border with Oman. Otherwise, within this dry, arid terrain, there are also 2 oases in the UAE, which have adequate underwater aquifers to support permanent settlements. They are the Liwa Oasis in the south and the Al Buraimi Oasis in the east near Oman. These two oases provide water that is used for most of the agriculture in the UAE, whereas water for human consumption is almost exclusively provided from desalination plants along the coast that convert seawater into potable drinking water.
Smart.
So like some of the other countries in the GCC, the UAE lies in a very unique location. On the surface, you'd think it's just desolate, arid sand dunes, but underneath, liquid gold. They have either the 7th or 6th largest known oil reserves in the world. Speaking of liquids, it's time for my triple shot of espresso break, and with that, here comes Noah to finish.
It's very impressive. Like,
Here we are.
you guys got very lucky with that. Like especially seeing like how small this is compared to like Saudi Arabia, which is like obviously most of the Arabian peninsula. Yeah, so that's pretty impressive.
Once again, ready to roll. So as mentioned, the UAE has lots of oil, and 96% of their offshore inland reserves are in the Abu Dhabi Emirate, holding about 100 billion barrels, producing about 3.2 million barrels of petroleum per day. Although yes, the petroleum exports take up about 3/4 of their state budget, and their economy is still heavily dependent on the resource, the country has made bold moves to diversify their portfolio.
Yeah, you need to diversify that.
Experiment was held then by Dubai. How did it get so world-renowned? Well, it basically kind of went like this.
We're the only other Emirates that have some oil reserves, but nowhere near what Abu Dhabi has. Not that we are trying to compete, because we're all one country, but there is no way we can have their level of commerce.
So, what's the plan?
Why don't I try everything but the oil thing?
And with that, Dubai became sort of like the guinea pig that took the biggest risks in regards to investing in outside streams of revenue. With extreme PR and marketing tactics suddenly out of nowhere in the early 2000s, everybody around the world knew the name Dubai. Overall, Dubai surged its way into becoming a global city. But then,
I can be flashy too.
and now Abu Dhabi has everything from Ferrari World to a space agency. But outside the skyscrapers and concrete lies a more natural side of the Emirates. And with that, here's Gary Harlow with the animal segment. Take it away.
My name is Gary Harlow. Come to teach you about animals.
I know a lot of people don't like. Well, not a lot of people. There's like one person that I watch called Chopo, El Chopo. I don't remember. Sorry, I'm really bad at like remembering names, like even in real life. But he really doesn't like this section. Just cause the accent of this guy. I don't know. I like it. Maybe it's just cause I fucking like animals and plants, etc. To be fair, he's not doing the Australian accent this time.
Today. No, wrong accent there.
Never mind.
Animals of the UAE. The country has about 13 protected areas, including 4 national parks. Here, native endangered mammal species like the Arabian oryx, gazelle, and desert fox can be found, usually surrounded by plants like desert thyme and acacia trees. By the way, yes, there used to be a trend of super wealthy socialites posting up pictures of exotic animals like cheetahs, tigers, and lions as
I don't
pets.
feel too good about that.
In 2017, the government passed a law banning private ownership of said animals, and violations can come with huge fines.
Thank you.
Even
Good.
imprisonment. Along the coast, various wetlands and mangrove islands are protected to give home to some of the 450 documented.
Hey, if you're from the UAE, just so you know, I do my work in wetlands. Call me. Seriously.
Bird species like flamingos, herons, and sandpipers. Even the national bird, the golden falcon, can be spotted. Sometimes it even tries to hunt said flamingos or sandpipers. You gotta eat. And now I will demonstrate how a golden hawk tries to eat flamingos or sandpipers.
That's because they grab them with their wings.
That's right. Off the coast, the warm waters allow for a variety of soft and hard coral species to grow, which in return make a home for other species like hawksbill turtles, dugongs, spinner dolphins, and if you're lucky, a whale shark might
Wow.
swing by.
That's cool.
Unfortunately, one concern is that all the fast construction projects often affect the environment. Hundreds of square miles of coastal reefs are destroyed by land reclamation.
I've heard about that
projects
also.
to create artificial islands. These issues have been brought up, and the country has initiated conservation efforts to salvage and preserve their wildlife as best as they can. In any case, one of the rarest species in...
If you like making giant mega projects so much, why don't you make a humongous zoo on the inside of your country? Like, seriously. Like, that'll probably be a really good idea.
in this country is the actual Emirati citizen. They typically consume a diet of gold and platinum, but if they are watching their figure, maybe just a light snack of pearls and rubies. That's all for me, folks. Off I go!
Thank you, Gabriel.
And well, despite my my focus on biology and like aquatic ecosystems and the environment, I'm also a big fan of rocks and gems, so I haven't done any specific videos on gemstones or etc. But I don't know. I felt like that's kind of related to what they're talking about here. Like I just collect fucking rocks. That's what I do.
Well, as you can see, the Emirates definitely has more to it than just a metropolitan site. And as they say in Transformers, there is more to them than meets the eye.
I like Autobots Assemble better.
It's Autobots Roll Out, Avengers Assemble. Thank you very much.
It's all Hollywood. They all make the same thing.
Most food to this day is imported from outside. However, even in antiquity, the Emirates has had their distinct cuisine. To talk more about the food, here's one of our Jogger peeps to explain.
Hey, Noah, so we had a subscriber, but they had to back out at the last second.
Dang.
The food. In terms of actual traditional Emirati cuisine, we kind of have to go back to the
Kinda like
Bedouin culture
couscous.
of the Arabian Peninsula. Basically, there were two types of proteins. Inland, the Bedouins usually were livestock herders with camels and cows. They would typically eat those meats, and they would drink a lot of camel milk, whereas the pearl divers on the coast would typically eat a lot more seafood. Typical breakfast dishes include
camel and camel milk
bayadis,
any good?
banga, hamir, shibab.
Looks pretty
Dinner
good.
dishes more commonly seen might include things like kabsa, kulsi, gawa, or Arabic coffee is in every household.
Why is it green?
Is a good dessert. You drizzle the honey on top. It's really good. So yeah, if you're hungry, the Emirates will not disappoint. Back to you, Noah.
Thank you. Well,
So I am a fan of Turkish food, and like, yeah, I know obviously Turks aren't Arabs, Arabs aren't Turks. They apparently both groups don't like when you call them that, but the food kind of has like a similar feel to it. So is food from the UAE kind of like similar more or less? I'm just trying to see if like this is something I would actually like to try out sometime.
that's all for me this time around. I think it's only appropriate for me to say, roll out.
Autobots Assemble.
Thank you, Noah. In addition to the ever-growing list of mega projects and real estate plans, they've made bold moves like opening up Khalifa Port, or the finance sector announcing that they would initiate the 55.5% corporate foreign ownership rights tax withholding. All of this kind of started to foster a quick prosperity season. And in return, it has given the UAE the largest sovereign wealth fund in the GCC at almost $800 billion. And
Damn.
all of that brings us to the next segment where we talk about the people of the
That's a lot of money.
Let's go. So I asked my Emirati subscribers to describe the differences between the 7 Emirates, and correct me if I'm wrong, but to the best of my understanding, it seems like they kind of said this. Abu Dhabi, the big guy, the head honcho that produces most of the money and kind of holds most of the country together. Dubai is like the flashy social media influencer brother that likes to spend lots of money and show off. Sharjah is like the more conservative, traditional older sister that doesn't rebel much, doesn't drink alcohol, but also her money is very tied into Dubai's crazy antics, so she kind of like rolls her eyes and deals with it. Ajman is like the chill middle child, the sidekick that happily shows up to every party. Fujairah is like the fun aunt on the east coast that likes the beach and hanging out. Al Quwain is like the mysterious, least populated emirate with lots of nature and hiking and fishing and archaeological sites. Ras Al Khaimah is like the naturey mountain emirate. Also, they were the ones that didn't almost join the Emirates because historically they were the richest emirate. So I don't know, Emiratis, how did I do with that explanation? Was that kind of I don't know, let me know if I was in the ballpark. In any case, those are the Emirates. Now let's talk about the people inside of those
Emirati.
First of all, the country has nearly 10 million people, and as of 2021, surpassed Qatar as having the highest expat to citizen ratio in the world. The country is made up somewhere
That's not
around
too much. The city that I'm in right now
88.5%
has
expats, and
more
the rest
people than
are
that.
Actual Emirati citizens, mostly Arab in descent. According to the estimates given by each country's embassy that reports on documented expats, it is speculated that of the expat community, about 27% come from India, 13% Pakistan, Bangladeshis make up about 7%, Filipinos 6%, Egyptians and Iranians each at about 5%, and the rest of the expats are represented by over 100 nationalities across the world.
They use the dirham as their currency, they use the types C and D plug outlets, and they drive on the right side of the road. Language-wise, Standard Arabic is the official language taught in schools. However, Emiratis speak with a Gulf dialect. However, on that note, English is the most commonly used language in the country, especially between expats and Emiratis. You go there speaking English, you'll be fine. Religion. Okay, this is where things are going to get a little interesting. Constitutionally,
Probably all
designates
Muslim,
Islam
right?
as the state religion. However, they do allow freedom of worship as long as it does not conflict with public policy or morals. Nonetheless, as of 2022, for the first time, non-Muslims actually outnumbered Muslims, which make up only about 49% of the country. The second largest religious group at about 35% is actually Hindu, mostly derived from the Indian expats, followed by Christians at about 10%, mostly coming from Filipinos, Africans, and some Europeans. In fact, religion in the Emirates has been a somewhat, I don't want to say controversial, but more like a subtly insipid, awkward topic when they engage with other Muslim-majority countries. To this day, not only does the UAE allow the construction of places of worship for non-Muslims, but the government actually even funds some of them. This means that some of the more fundamentalist Muslim nations or communities across the world may look at these actions and disagree with the practice. It's like, how can Muslims allow the building, let alone fund something like a Hindu temple? Well, I'm not one to authoritatively speak on this topic. I would advise you to talk to an Emirati for their input. But from my understanding, what it essentially boils down to is the strategy of the Emirates is if you want to attract the investor class, many of whom may not be Muslim, then you're going to have to kind of make things as smooth as possible for them to transition into your society. And this is where the blurred lines of flexibility come into play for the Emirates. But in the end, what it comes down to is the expats have the freedom to pretty much be themselves as long as they don't go crazy and cause a ruckus. There are some strict laws in regards to things like defamation, public decency, PDA, and you
I was about to
can
talk
be
about
fined
that
and
police car,
arrested
but yeah.
if you swear in public or even post something on social media that criticizes someone else. Free speech and press is limited. Anything that openly and publicly criticizes the government or Islam is prohibited as well. In regards to being an actual Emirati, the story is a little bit different. Long story short, unless you are born an Emirati from Emirati parents, it is very difficult to become a citizen. Foreign women actually have it a little bit easier because they can just kind of marry an Emirati man and get citizenship fast. Whereas if you are a non-Emirati man that marries an Emirati woman, you would have to go through a lengthy process of like waiting 3 years to even apply, and then you have to prove that you have at least 7 consecutive years of living in the country.
That's fucking crazy.
Employment, and then there's like the whole good luck even finding
I'm
an
good.
Emirati woman. But hey, legally it is possible. If you were not born as an Emirati or married into it, the only other chance you have to become a citizen is if you are literally granted it by a high-ranking official, usually in the royal family. Why would you want to become an Emirati citizen? Well, it kind of comes with a lot of amazing perks. It is the strongest of all the GCC passports: free subsidized health care and education, free housing
nice.
or interest-free loans to build a house. They have
That's
preferences in
nice.
employment, higher salaries that may come with an extra allowance, food and clothing vouchers, utility subsidies. And even when they get married, they could qualify for a wedding grant up to 70,000 dirhams based off of their income bracket. So think of it. This is one of the reasons why they can't just let everybody become a citizen. Because if they did,
Makes
considering all
sense.
the incentives, let's be real, it would render the nation bankrupt. This means, of course, being an expat comes with its own social dynamic. Geography Harsha wrote to me, it is of course known that expats are more restricted in their ability to take risks in their careers, especially if they have family. If you lose your job, everyone dependent on your visa will be affected. Even if your kids are still in school, you have to be
Not a
very
fan of that.
calculative in your career moves.
Okay, never mind. I guess I don't want to go to the UAE.
Why don't we actually have someone who has lived it? You may have remembered him from my Somaliland episode. Geography Khalid, take it away, explain.
So here are some of the UAE visas explained. The most common ones for non-tourists are the employment, investor, and residence visa. That must be renewed every 3 years. If someone is born in the country, like myself, they will receive a birth certificate, but the citizenship will be from the country that they're originally from or their parents are from. In addition, the baby will still require a residence visa. In addition, there is ever so exclusive, newly announced golden visa started in 2019, only given out to selected few outstanding individuals. Something as well I have to share with you that once you turn 18, as a male, you are not allowed to be under your parents' visas anymore. You're your own man. But if you're a female, single female, you're allowed to stay under your parents for as long as you want, as long as you're a single female. All right? So I had to get kicked out of the country when I turned 18, unfortunately, but still go back there and visit. So I hope this helped clears up a few
Wow.
things for you. Thank you very much, and back to you, Paul.
Thank you, Khalid. Now here's the deal. At this point, I know what you're all thinking. We've all seen those news articles about expats being mistreated.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about this. I didn't remember it. I remember anything about it. It's just pretty bad on me. Until they talked about the Hindu population. I know a lot of like Southeast Asians have had their like passports taken, which means you can't go back if you're mistreated. Like that's kind of crazy. Like if you're essentially like a modern day slave, more or less. If they decide to do that, which is very insane. If you're in the government, I know this is fucking crazy. Obviously, people in the government don't give a shit like what people, like ordinary citizens, from like especially from a different country like me, talk about. But please fix that. That's kind of looking extremely bad on your end. Yeah.
Was kind of bad.
Slaves
in the
bad.
beginning of the early 2000s, even the government acknowledges it. This was brought to the attention of the government, and they have heavily cracked down on the broken kafala system abuses. In 2016 and 18, the labor court issued new reforms that gave expat workers more rights. So there you go. Okay, that was a lot. Enough of the legalities of the people in the Emirates. Let's jump into something a little bit more exhilarating and fun. Why don't we jump into it with art with the sports part?
Hey guys, I'm Art.
Yeah, no, actually, Art is busy. He has work. He has stuff to do. People have lives, man. So I will fill in for Art's sports part. So when it comes to athletics, let's be real. The Emirates is more of like I'll host the event and you guys go nuts. So many competitions are held in this country every year, like the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships, Dubai World Cup of Horse Racing, the UAE Cycling Tour, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. In terms of actual athleticism, though, most traditional sports in the Arabian Peninsula are focused more on like operating some kind of animal.
1 second.
Or contraption rather than putting your own body through strenuous activities such as camel racing or dowboat racing or falconry. And by the way, they have robotic camel racing too, because you know the controversy of the child jockeys being injured. They have, yeah, that's why. However, the love of camel racing has also sort of translated into a sort of love of equestrian sports as well. In fact, the current ruler of Dubai, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, has not only competed in several horsing racing events, but has won quite a few and even started his own global racing cruising operation. And his first cousin, once removed, Ahmed Al Maktoum, won the Emirates' first and only Olympic gold medal to this day in sport shooting. Yeah, the Maktoum family, they got a competitive side. In any case, one final thing you can do in the Emirates, extreme sport. You guys have probably seen the videos and pictures of Ski Dubai, the world's first indoor ski resort. They literally built an 85-meter high indoor mountain, complete with artificial snow and even live penguins that are brought out to the enclosures that people and guests can interact with and play with if you pay an extra fee. You can even dive in the world's deepest pool, Deep Dive Dubai. You can skydive, paraglide, zip line, dune bash, jet ski, sandboard, bungee jump. Every conceivable extreme activity is found here. And speaking of extreme, I'm done with this segment. Art, you're awesome. Miss you, buddy. Sorry you had to miss this one. Until next time. Cheers. Yeah, the Emirates has had quite a bit on its plate when it comes to the social framework and mode of operation, and sometimes the question gets brought up, with all these foreign influences and values being brought into the country, does it kind of play any role in, I don't know, decreasing or compromising what may be considered Emirati culture or Arabic language and maybe even Islamic tradition? If you ask an Emirati, most of them would probably say no, because the people have legitimized their monarchs, they are happy with them, and as long as their system allows them to grow and prosper, there shouldn't be a need to look too much into it. And Emirati culture does exist. And with that, why don't we jump into the culture segment with Random Hannah. Hannah, take it away.
What's up, guys? I'm back. Behind all the concrete and glass lies a world of ancient historical traditions and customs. For one, like many other Gulf nations, prior to the discovery of oil, much of the country's culture was centered around coastal communities made up of tribes and clans that typically engaged in pearling with Abra boats. Each emirate also has their own traditional palace or fortress that former rulers used to live in. They are now museums holding old artifacts you can visit.
Yeah, okay, sure. Other Gulf countries have that too, but what are some things that are like distinctly Emirati?
Ah, good question. And quite frankly, it's kind of a little difficult to answer. And even people from the Gulf have trouble seeing the differences. The biggest one, though, would probably be clothing. If you look close, you can catch the elusive clues that give away nationality. Most Gulf men wear white thobes or kanduras with a tarbouche, or long-hanging tassel that connects to the neck. Think of it as like an Emirati version of the necktie. Like other Gulf states, Emirati women typically wear abayas, typically black, sometimes with embroidered sleeves or hems. Some prefer hijab, some don't. Of course, on an off day, if they want, they may occasionally wear Western-style clothing. However, keep in mind, in the Emirates, being an actual Emirati does kind of come with a sense of public dignity. They are really few and proud, so the last thing they would want to do is disgrace their nation, emirate, or even clan with outlandish clothing in public. Sometimes they end up looking too good and get kicked out of Saudi Arabia for being too handsome. Really? Yeah. That's great. That's hilarious. Oh my gosh. Anyway, back to the traditional stuff. Much of Emirati culture is also centered around Bedouin customs or nomadic peoples of the Arabian Peninsula that many Emirates are descendants from. They were desert innovators that created things like the Barjeel wind catcher towers that ventilated houses to the Falaj irrigation system that allowed crops to be grown in the desert. Nothing speaks more of the Emirati home than the majlis, or traditional sitting area with carpets on the floor, cushions on the walls where people talk, discuss, and are served coffee. Occasionally, you might see people greeting others with a khashmak, or the nose kiss, started as a greeting between Bedouins who had their hands full. Or you might hear an al-haida, which is the oral tradition of calling camel flocks. In regards to the arts, all tali weaving and embroidery, metalwork, camel hair textiles, pottery, and calligraphy are a huge part of Emirati tradition. Cinema-wise, the UAE has gone through a significant transformation in recent years, now becoming a world-class hub for filming, and they host multiple film festivals through the year. The government even subsidizes and incentivizes production companies to film in the country. And since then, studios like Image Nation Abu Dhabi, Dubai Film, and Barjoon Entertainment have popped up and become household names for this country. Otherwise, one other new thing that seems to be a part of Emirati culture, beating world records. The longest automated metro network, the largest choreographed fountain, the longest zip line, the longest painting. It goes on and on. Speaking of things that never end, Keith's appearance on this show. But we actually don't know if Keith is going to be in this episode, because I guess this is a new thing I say, we never know. So take it to Keith, or take it to...
Somebody else.
Somebody else.
Woo! Yeah, Keith is not here today. He has a wife, he has work to do, so yeah, why don't we have an actual Emirati explain this segment? Here's Geography Jude with the music segment.
Marhaba, my name is Jude Al-Kubaisi. So, UAE's music, what is it known for? Well, in 2021, Abu Dhabi was actually granted the title of City of Music by UNESCO's Creative Cities Network. Now I know what you're thinking. The UAE's music is just gonna be like every other Arab country, especially the GCCs. Well, yes and no. We do use a lot of the bass instruments. Some of those instruments are the oud, the tabla, which are drums, ney, which is a reed flute, and the rababa, which is an Arabic style fiddle. But we have very distinct ways of using those instruments and dancing to them. The most famous for Emirati music is probably the ayala, which is common at weddings, big events, where you have musicians dancing around with the instrument.
Alright, I know I'm never going to be able to go to UAE because I'm going to say this, but she's really fucking pretty. Just saying.
That they're playing. There's also the Al-Fajri music, which translates to dawn, which is the music that was sung by fishermen when they would go out to their boats. Al-Azi is also popular style of music, and it's named after a tribe. Shallat is the music of the nomads, or as we call them, Badu, which is sung in nasally voices. Traditional folk music will usually be accompanied by traditional folk dancing, the most popular of which is the yola, and where you see sticks and guns being twirled and thrown around.
That's a gun. I didn't even notice that.
And I know what you're thinking. Do the girls have any fun? Yes, we do. Raqsat al-Na'ashat is usually performed by young girls in colorful traditional dress, putting their hair back and forth. The music of the UAE is extremely diverse, even differing from tribes.
Kind of reminds me of, like, I think what the Himba tribe in Ethiopia does when they have, like, the hair dance. It might be a different tribe. I might be misremembering that name wrong, but yeah.
Tribe to tribe. In a contemporary sense, today, the UAE is a hub of music and musical production. World-renowned artists have recorded in the studios in the UAE, including Platinum Records, SAE Studios in Dubai, Soundstruck Studios, and Headline Music Studios. And Dubai, no surprise, is a very popular hub for music videos. And finally, what's something that we do really well? Party. Red Fest in Dubai. The huge international headliners playing at venues such as the annual.
Really, I never would have guessed that. I always assumed that like many Arabian cultures are like very anti-party and like, that's just new to me.
Formula One concerts at Du Arena, and there are also a lot of smaller venues with open mics throughout the city. Now, we've only really scratched the surface of everything that the UAE has to offer musically, both in the past and the present. But I hope that you enjoyed this segment, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Awesome job. So we just covered a lot of information about the Emirates and Emiratis and the people and the expats. Clearly, you can see by now there is a huge global connection with this country. So with that in mind, let's talk about it in our last segment, So clearly by now you can tell that the population of the Emirates is pretty diverse. And you don't get that way without being able to connect to all the countries that make you diverse. Here's how their diplomacy works out.
For one, if you want to know their closest business friends, look no further than the investor countries like the USA, UK, India, China, and Russia. Of course, being formally affiliated with the UK as a protectorate has kept their ties to the British close.
Russia.
The English language only helps the relationship with them and the Americans, whom the Americans have bilateral treaties with, including trade, security, counterterrorism efforts, and military cooperation. China and India are the largest trading partners and of course have worked on a number of infrastructure and energy projects, Khalifa Port, and the Abu Dhabi oil refining and petrochemical complex. Each of these large investor nations has a noticeable community of expats that invest heavily in real estate and business, and many people from these countries have obtained the golden visa. Of course, countries where the majority of expats come from also have close ties: India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, the Philippines, and Egypt. The UAE does what they can to accommodate these communities as best they can. In addition, the UAE has done lots of philanthropic work abroad in many of these countries, such as sending aid to disaster victims. If you want to know about the closest friends, though, most Emiratis will probably say GCC countries tie in the closest. They all have a shared culture and history and language. They are able to freely travel within each other's countries and have diplomatic agreements that combine economic, military, social, and
why is Yemen not on there?
each other. If they had to choose choose the closest ones, though, most Emiratis I have talked to have said maybe Saudi Arabia or Oman are the closest. Oman because, come on, everybody loves Oman. It's like the happy grandma of the Arab world. Seriously, nobody hates Oman. And Saudi Arabia, due to the shared structure of both countries being fast-developing Islamic nations that have a mutual understanding of traditional Arab tribal monarchical rule. Granted, Saudi Arabia is a little more conservative and may look at the actions the UAE takes with a little raised eyebrow, but overall, the heads of state meet each other regularly, they are totally welcomed in each other's countries, and they get each other oh so very well.
In conclusion, clearly it's been evident that the Emirates has become a global phenomenon. And the more you kind of dive into how this country functions, it seems that you'll notice there's always a crossroads of cultural expectations and legal openness that keeps this country running. Yeah, it might be flashy, but there's also a real side to it. Stay tuned, the UK is coming up next. And I'm coming to visit!
That should also be a very interesting episode. So yeah, thank you for coming here to see this video. Whatever you want to comment, put it in the comments. I love reading stuff. So yeah, thank you.